Andrew, how are you today?
Great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time. We are here today within the Federal MP office in Parramatta. It's on Macquarie Street. We're currently indoors just to keep away from the deluge. It has been rainy, although I'd say it's a good sign considering it's right after the long weekend. Yeah. In any case, we are here to have a chat with Andrew today regarding the elections. So as you all know, the elections are coming up and we have to decide who represents us and our wills at the local and state level. Local, state and national level, sorry. Andrew, would you mind starting us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm the current member for Parramatta. I'm a dad with 3 kids and my wife Phoebe. And I got into politics because I was really keen to make sure that Australia stays a country of opportunity. Mm-hmm. I feel like in my life I had the opportunity to get a good education, to get a good job, to start a family and get ahead. And I want to make sure that opportunity is available to every Australian. So for me, that's the motivation for being in politics, to change things for the better and to spread opportunity to more people, including right here in Parramatta. And that's what we've been doing, working with the community over the last 3 years.
And we've definitely seen the effects of that. We've definitely seen the effects. Can I ask, what I've gathered and what I've read about you, especially your early life, and I don't mean to be modest here, but you have come from a background of wealth and a strong connection to politics, especially during your schooling and college years. Would you say that politics was always something you were aiming to do, or was it something that you slowly found yourself in, whether it be because of the environment, perhaps the nature of politics, or like you mentioned, perhaps something inspired you and wanted to share that inspiration with others?
Yeah, look, my parents were not involved in politics. I was born in Kenthurst, not far from here in the northwest of Sydney. And I guess I really got involved in politics in 2007. And that's when the global financial crisis was brewing in Australia. Kevin Rudd had just become Prime Minister. At that time, I was working in London at the London School of Economics as an economist. And I was invited to come back to Australia and work as the Prime Minister's Chief Economic Advisor. And in that role, we worked really hard to protect Australia from the global recession. We made sure that Australia wasn't as impacted as many other countries in the world. And that for me was my first taste of what politics can really do, how politics can really change things for the better.
For sure.
And those set of policies that Kevin Rudd implemented, I thought to myself, wow, this is a great thing to do with your life. You have the opportunity to make a real difference if you get it right. And I guess that's what interested me in politics the first time.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I'd like to actually touch upon your previous career before you actually got started in politics, because I feel like you've underplayed it a little, and I don't want you to be modest here. And for those who are unfamiliar, Andrew here he's had a very successful career, to say the least. I mean, you've founded your own consulting firm, which was a pioneering consulting firm within Australia at the time. Like you mentioned, you were also the senior economic advisor to the former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. But you've also had a very prominent academic career too. I mean, you've written, 3 books now? The last one was published last year. And you've also written many essays on economic sustainability, not just for Australia, but for the globe. I really wanted to ask, why politics? I mean, you mentioned that it is inspirational, but many people, and I'm not just talking about within politics, but outside of politics, the term goes that politics is a dirty game. Why dip your feet into it, and what are some of the challenges you found in politics compared to other areas in your career?
Yeah, I mean, you can't leave politics to the dirty people. I mean, I think if good people don't get involved in politics, and there are many good people in politics on both sides of politics, and I think it's important for those good people to stay in politics. You're right that it's not the easiest life, but it's a life where if you do it and do it well, you can generate real change. I mean, for me, you very generously described my career. I've been an academic working on how you strengthen economies around the world. I'd worked in the UK, I'd worked in the US, I worked in Europe, and then I had my own business, again, helping companies and countries to think about their economies better, to strengthen their economies, to create more opportunity. And so it is, I think, a natural extension of that. When you get an opportunity to go and play a role yourself in strengthening an economy, in building a country as a politician, it makes sense to take that step. And the Labor Party is an incredible vehicle for progress in Australia.
It's had a long history too.
We have a very long history with some incredible achievements. It was Labor that delivered Medicare to Australia. It was Labor that opened up access to higher education to many more people. It was Labor that delivered the working rights that many Australians enjoy. These are big achievements, and Labor that reformed the economy in the 1990s. So, to be thinking, how do we think about improving the economy for the future, making Australia stronger for the future? That's an exciting thing to do with your life, I think.
And we'll certainly be able to taste the fruits of Labor through Labor.
Indeed.
I wanted to talk about your entry into the Parramatta electorate in 2022. From what I've read and what I've found out, it was, to put it mildly, very turbulent for you. I mean, you've had not only criticisms outside the party, which of course is always present, but you also had a lot of criticisms for your nomination within the party. And on top of that, when your official nomination came through, you had just over a month to actually campaign. Yet despite all this, you still emerged victorious. Can you talk a little bit about how you managed to navigate through this time, through these difficulties, and how you was able to deliver on many of the promises, and that you kept some of these promises to this day?
Yeah, well, look, the people of Parramatta gave me the great honour of electing me at the last election. As you say, in that election, I was knocking on thousands of doors, talking to thousands of people, telling them about my aspirations for this area, my aspirations for the country. And, I think over the last year, we've sought to deliver on those aspirations. We've improved the local healthcare system. We've fixed lots of the local elements of infrastructure, the Toongabbie Bridge, the Epping Bridge, local roads. We've made a big difference in education, fully funding public schools, creating more places at Western Sydney University, making childcare cheaper and more accessible. We've upgraded safety through CCTV cameras in many parts of the city. So in area after area, we've sought to deliver on the promises that we made. And that's my message to the electorate of this election, that we've done what we said we would do, so you can trust us to deliver for the future.
From your many initiatives that you've spoken about, you've definitely delivered on them. I know these are very much trying times for everyone, so it's often hard for us to really recognize and really feel some of these changes, but they are real, and we've definitely felt a little bit of an ease at the very least in our quality of life. Can you talk about what you wish to bring if you're re-elected again, or how will you meet the demands and expectations that the public have not just of yourself, but also of the Labor government?
Well, look, I've tried in this election to pay the voters of Parramatta the respect of telling them what we're going to do. So in every single letterbox in the electorate, I put in a booklet that explained what we have done and what we're going to do across healthcare, cost of living, environment, heritage, safety, economy. And in each of those areas, I wanted to give people the respect of outlining our initiatives and what our plans are for the future. I think that's what all politicians should do. We should be taking voters seriously. That's why the Labor government has outlined our policies in such detail in their selection. So for me, it's very important to be clear with people about your plans. And I think that's why some people are nervous in this election about the Liberals, because the Liberals have not produced costed policies. They're not saying where they're going to cut in order to pay for their $600 billion nuclear reactor policy. And so people have a lot of questions. And I think those questions are causing people to wonder what the Liberals are going to do if they were to get elected, and maybe to think twice about supporting them this time around.
So you believe Labor is in a very strong position this election, do you?
Well, I think we've taken this election very seriously. We've outlined serious plans. We have got policies in place in the key areas that matter to people: cost of living, housing, health, employment. In each of those areas, we've been very clear about what we're doing and what we're going to do. And I think the Liberals have been very good over the last 3 years at raising complaints and concerns. Concerns about the cost of living, concerns about healthcare. But what they haven't done is outline solutions to those problems. And so I think now, as people start to think about who they're going to vote for, they're thinking, well, I have heard all the concerns, but who's really got the solutions to those problems? And that's where I think they're finding Peter Dutton wanting, and that's why I think they're turning towards Anthony Albanese.
That seems like a fair evaluation of the current political scenario. I want to speak a little more at length about some of your stances and some of your initiatives that you've made. Starting off with the North Parramatta development, would you mind just clarifying for everyone else what your stance is on that? Absolutely.
So we have an incredible historic set of sites in Parramatta. We've got some of the oldest homes, we've got Government House, we've got the old jail, we've got the female factory, the girls' home, some incredible colonial history as well as Indigenous history in Parramatta. And one site, which is around the female factory and the Cumberland Hospital, is a particularly special place. It contains some of the most important historic buildings in Australia, set in a beautiful setting beside Parramatta Park. And my aspiration has been to make this a real cultural and heritage jewel for the city of Parramatta. Something that makes our city incredibly special, that attracts tourism, that attracts families, that is an incredible place to go for recreation, to go to celebrate our history and enjoy our present. So finding that vision, I think, is really important to me. Now, there are other proposals out there. For me, I think the best way to think about it would be what's going to deliver the most to our city. And something that recognises that heritage, uses that space in order to make it a tourist destination, a destination for local families, would be really worthwhile. There is a big push for new housing in Parramatta, and I'm really proud that we are delivering that new housing. In the last financial year, Parramatta is the number one local government area in New South Wales for new housing approvals. Number one. We have the most new housing approvals of any local government area. And in many ways, that is a good thing, because Australia needs new housing. We need the opportunity for young people to get into housing. But we need to make sure that housing is in the right place, that it has the right infrastructure, that it has access to transport, and that it has the right amenities around it, including parks and culture and heritage. And I think finding that balance is the important thing in North Parramatta.
I completely agree with you on that, because I've been living in the Parramatta electorate for a really long time, and specifically within Harris Park for a very long time. And I've definitely seen that Parramatta, out of all the other districts, all the other regions of Sydney or New South Wales, has not just a rich history, but I think more importantly, a very tangible history. We're able to see a lot of, as you said, history of the first settlers, as well as Indigenous and First Nations people, is definitely something we should be proud of. But oftentimes I find that a lot of, and I don't mean to offend you by saying this, but a lot of governments and a lot of federal MPs have come and gone, and we haven't seen big improvements in this regard. For example, Parramatta River, and this might just be me, but every time I go past it, it just seems to get murkier and murkier by the day. How can we know that you will fulfill your promise on this? I mean, you've definitely built a reputation in your past election of fulfilling promises, but this seems to be in some ways a curse for Parramatta. How can we know that you're going to break this curse?
Well, we've taken really strong action. So, we said we would protect the female factory, and one of the first things I did was nominate the female factory for World Heritage listing. And that nomination will make the female factory protected for the long term. Secondly, in terms of some of the other heritage sites in Parramatta, we've applied for national heritage listing, like the precinct around 3 of Australia's oldest homes. So in each area, we're taking very concrete steps to protect that heritage and to make sure that it's there for future generations. And I totally agree with you. It should be something that we celebrate, that we protect, that we invest in, that becomes real jewels for our city that people can enjoy for generations to come.
I think people would be glad to hear that. People would be glad to see some change finally in this regard. Speaking of development, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you believe that Parramatta has undergone a lot of development, maybe even more so compared to other electorates. How much more development, and in different regards as well, not just overall, but financially or residentially, how much more development can Parramatta feasibly sustain, do you think? You're the economist, this is kind of your forte in a sense. How much do you think?
Well, I think we've got a lot more that we need to put into Parramatta in terms of infrastructure. We've made some great progress. The light rail has just opened. The metro is under construction. We certainly need to make sure, if we are to achieve Parramatta's aspiration to be a truly global city, the best place in Australia to live, work and raise a family, we need to put more social and economic infrastructure into the city. The transport pieces are an important part of that puzzle. The heritage pieces are an important part of that puzzle. The cultural pieces are an important part of that puzzle. And in that regard, we've got the new powerhouse Parramatta. We've got the redevelopment of the Riverside Theatre, aspirations to redevelop the Roxy Theatre to create a real cultural heartbeat in our city. The Eels are building a new live site over above the stadium next to the Leagues Club. So I think there's a lot happening in Parramatta, and if we get it right, it will come together to make this a really special place to live.
I'm excited to see these changes. I really am.
Me too.
I'd like to talk more on the housing you were talking about, particularly when it comes to young people. So I think we've been hearing for a really long time now, myself included. I've been very much a culprit of this. Young people are finding it increasingly hard to pay for rent, to buy a house. And this is not just a local issue, it is very much a global issue. Unfortunately, Australia is kind of leading in this issue because we do have one of the most expensive housing markets, and there are a variety of reasons for this. Perhaps a combination of all of them to some degree. What has the Labour government done in order to remedy this? And if it is re-elected for a next term, what does it intend to do?
Well, for the first time, the Labor government has been serious about housing in Australia. The Liberal government before us, for much of their time in office, did not even have a housing minister. They completely vacated the housing field, which led to a huge underbuild in Australian housing, a problem that was decades in the making, and which today's young generation are now bearing the brunt of through higher rents and higher costs of housing. So the Labor government is now turning the situation around. We have more than $40 billion in policies to build new houses, to help young people get into houses, including our most recent policies, which help young people get into housing with a 5% deposit, and which provides dedicated housing, especially for first home buyers. So we're working on both the supply and the demand side, working on the supply side to build more houses and on the demand side, to make sure that young people have incentives, encouragement, and support to get into their first home.
I think that gives us a lot of hope as young people. I think I speak for all young people when I say this, but we've been very much hopeless when it comes to this topic for quite a while now. The fact that it is getting addressed seriously, albeit for the first time, but at least it's getting addressed, is honestly just a new ray of sunshine for us. It is very important to us, and we really hope the Labour government does deliver on this if they are re-elected again. Speaking of transport, and a little more local again, you mentioned the Parramatta Light Rail. The New South Wales government has committed to developing stage 2 of the Parramatta Light Rail to Olympic Park and Wentworth Point. But at the moment, as far as I understand, it is currently underfunded. Can the federal government promise to commit and to fund this project so that we can see it through to its end? Because I personally find that the Parramatta Light Rail is definitely a great idea. I mean, it gets cars off the road, it provides an easy method of transportation. We've already seen the light rail in the city, and it is working great. When can we see this finished in Parramatta?
Well, look, Parramatta Light Rail Stage 2 has been talked about for a long time. The state government has committed significant funds towards its development, and it's something that the state and federal government are working closely on together. We're looking at the proposals, we're working with the state government, we're looking at the preparatory works that will need to be done, the planning that will need to be done. But I agree with you, it's an important project, and one I think that a lot of people in Parramatta will be looking forward to. It goes through a number of areas which I think are generally underserved in terms of transport options. And so from those perspectives, I think it's a project that has a lot of merit.
Is there any time frame that you're able to give at this point? Or?
Well, we've just, the Light Rail Stage 1 has only recently opened, so there's a lot of work to do in the planning and preparation. But, it's something that the Minns government has really put their weight behind, which is fantastic. And the federal government is going to be looking closely at that and working with the Minns government to make sure that it gets completed.
Keeping on the theme of transport, Western Sydney Airport, it's been delayed for quite some time now. Is there a time frame that we can expect it to be delivered? I might not even use it, but I just want to see it at this point.
Well, I do think a lot of progress has been made in Western Sydney Airport. I think it's a project that, you're absolutely right, has been talked about for a long, long time. But recently a lot of progress has been made. We've put infrastructure out there. The airport itself is making good progress. The Bradfield Town Centre is progressing. There are clearly some infrastructure links that need to be built, but the federal government has invested billions of dollars in the airport surrounds, and in the transport links to the airport. So I'm actually quite excited about it. I think it will be a fantastic asset for Western Sydney, something that Western Sydney badly needs, and really opens up Western Sydney as a transport hub to the world. You won't have to travel from Western Sydney to Mascot to get on a plane and visit another city in Australia or visit another country. You'll be able to leave from Western Sydney, and people will be able to come into Western Sydney from around the country and around the world. So it's a great opportunity for Western Sydney, and one that we need to make sure we make the most of.
Okay, all right. I think we can expect to see it, hopefully, within this decade. Yeah. Within the next 5 years, I think.
A lot of progress.
It sounds like it might happen. I'd like to talk a bit more about Medicare. It's been a very focal point of the Labour government campaign this time. We've seen from COVID a lot of cracks have shown within the healthcare system, and these cracks have definitely bled a lot. It seems that the Labour government at the very least has developed the urgent care facilities as well as, I believe, mental health facilities as a solution to this problem. Do you think that these are enough to address the current healthcare of Australia? Do you think we need more? Is there anything else we can do with healthcare to try and improve what we currently have and to really fix the problems that really showed out during COVID?
Yeah, look, there are a lot of challenges in our healthcare system. I mean, every day I hear people talk to me about the challenges they have in finding a GP that will bulk bill. I hear from people all the time about the challenges they have in emergency departments, waiting for, in some cases, many hours to get the urgent care that they need. So these are both things that the Albanese Labor government is working on very directly. In order to make it easier to see a doctor, we have significantly increased the incentive for GPs to bulk bill their patients, and we're continuing to invest in that with a goal that 9 out of 10 GP visits are bulk billed. We want to get to a situation where people can easily see a doctor for free. It's a basic principle of Medicare. And then secondly, we've been working to build these new urgent care clinics so that people don't have to wait so long in emergency departments. So our emergency departments have a bit of pressure taken off them and people get the care that they need quickly. So these are two really tangible ways that we're improving our healthcare system, making it easy to see a GP and making it quicker and easier to get urgent care when you need it. Those are some of the basic building blocks of our healthcare system, and we're committed to making sure that we provide that for people.
Well, we'll come to the end of our little talk, Andrew. I just want to ask you one last question about Parramatta. So the Parramatta seat is a very multicultural seat. I mean, we have people from all around the world who live here from different backgrounds. Some of them you've never even heard of, but they're here and you can find them for sure. I want to ask, you've definitely played on this strength during your time by giving attention to certain communities and supporting them. Despite this, there seems to be some people, both within and outside of the electorate, that are dissatisfied with this response and with the support that you've given, often seeing it as sort of giving too much attention to one particular group. Do you have anything to say in this regard?
Look, I think Parramatta's multiculturalism is one of its great strengths. I always say the future of Parramatta is the future of Australia. And that future is ambitious, it's diverse, and it's optimistic. And I think the communities in Parramatta really reflect that. It's the best of Australia, and I think the best of Australia's future. That's why I want to make sure that Parramatta is a place where every community can flourish. Every community can have a good job, a good education, a good healthcare, a good stable foundation for them to build their family on. And that, in my experience, from talking to so many people across our electorate, that's what they want for their family. People travel to Parramatta from across the city, from across the country, from across the world to make this their home. And they come here for those reasons, to build a better life for themselves, to leave a better life for their family. And that's what we want to build. And that's something that I think will make Parramatta the best place in Australia to live, work, and raise a family.
And I don't think anyone could have put it any better than that. That was a very fitting response. Thank you. It actually made me feel very warm inside. Well, that brings us to the end of our talk. Are there any closing remarks you want to tell the people before we finish on today?
Well, there's an election coming up, so I encourage people to have a look at the platforms of both parties, look at their policies on the issues that matter to you, whether that be housing or supporting families with budget pressures or healthcare or education. Have a look at those policies, decide which of the two political parties most align with your values and your aspirations for Australia and for your family. Do your research because your vote really matters, and I encourage people to get out there before May the 3rd, make their decision and cast their vote.
Definitely makes life easier for you to vote early. Where can people contact you if they want to talk to you personally or just get in touch with you? Is there any place they can look? Facebook, Instagram, if you're on that?
Absolutely, yeah. People can contact me on Facebook, on Instagram. Probably the best way to contact me is by sending me an email. You can Google that email, andrew.charlton.mp@aph.gov.au, or they can come into the office here, make an appointment, Connecting with the community is an incredibly important part of my job, and I'm always keen to meet with people, hear their perspectives, help them with their problems if I can, and work with them to make our city even better.
It's good to hear. Well, that brings us to the end of our little talk. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. I know this is a very busy time for you and your team at the moment, so it does mean a lot to us that you've made some time for this chat. And I think it means a lot to the people as well who are deciding on who to vote. I think it definitely gives some clarification as to who they're voting for and humanizes them, more so than just seeing an image on a screen, which we're very used to nowadays, unfortunately. With that being said, we will hopefully come back later, depending on how this goes. Otherwise, if you haven't already voted, voting is also on May 3rd. So make sure you vote. There's no point copying a fine. Do your research as well before you vote.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Everyone, please take care. Bye-bye.